Deep within the untamed heart of Africa, a story unfolds, a legend whispered on the wind, carried through the rustling leaves of the jungle. It's the story of a boy lost to the world of men, only to be found by the wild. This is the tale of Tarzan, the king of the apes. Our story begins with tragedy. A young English couple, Lord and Lady Greystoke, are marooned on the treacherous coast. They build a small shelter, a tiny bastion of civilization, against an overwhelming wilderness. It is here, amidst the symphony of strange and wonderful creatures, that their son is born. But their fragile peace is shattered when the great apes, led by the fierce Kerchak, descend upon their camp. In the ensuing chaos, the infant is left orphaned, his cries echoing through the dense canopy. But fate, it seems, had a different plan. A female ape named Kyla, her own heart aching from the loss of her child, hears the baby's cries. She defies her leader, Kerchak, and scoops up the small hairless creature, adopting him as her own. She names him Tarzan, white skin in the language of the great apes. Growing up, Tarzan was different. He couldn't climb as fast or swing as high as his ape siblings. His skin was soft, his strength lacking. He was an outsider, often teased and scorned by the others, especially Kerchak, who saw him as a weak and unnatural presence. But what he lacked in brute strength, he made up for with a sharp, inquisitive mind. He learned. He adapted. He watched the monkeys and learned to move through the trees with breathtaking grace. He studied the panthers and learned to hunt with silent, deadly precision. He taught himself to craft ropes from vines and fashion a knife from his father's abandoned blade. He was becoming something new, not quite ape, not quite man, but a fusion of both. The jungle was his school, and its creatures were his teachers. He learned its language, the calls of the birds, the growls of the predators, the silent communication of the herd. He became one with the rhythm of the wild, his senses honed to a razor's edge. Years passed. The boy grew into a man of incredible power and agility. His body was a testament to the harsh beauty of his environment, a landscape of muscle and scars, of strength earned through survival. He could outrun the fastest deer, out-wrestle the strongest gorilla. He became a protector, a leader. After a ferocious battle with a leopard that threatened his family, even the mighty Kerchak began to see the strength in the strange white ape. Tarzan had earned his place. He was no longer an outsider. He was the future leader of the tribe. He was Tarzan of the apes. For years, this was his entire world. The emerald canopy was his roof, the forest floor his home. He knew nothing of the world his parents had come from, a world of cities, of machines, of men who looked just like him. His heart was wild, his spirit free. He was king of this vast green kingdom, but the world beyond the jungle was about to come crashing into his. One day, the familiar sounds of the jungle were pierced by something new, the sharp crack of a gunshot. A group of explorers had arrived, led by the elderly Professor Porter, his adventurous daughter Jane, and their brash gun-toting guide, Clayton. They were here to study gorillas, to capture the mystery of the jungle. For Tarzan, it was a moment of profound shock. He saw them from the treetops, creatures that looked like him. And then he saw her, Jane Porter, with her bright eyes, her kind smile, and her curious, gentle nature. She was unlike anything he had ever seen. She was captivating. When she found herself separated from her group and cornered by a furious troop of baboons, Tarzan descended from the trees like a guardian spirit. He moved with a speed and power that left her breathless, driving the attackers away with a fearsome cry that echoed through the forest. For Jane, it was terrifying and exhilarating. Here was a wild man, a savage, yet he had saved her. She looked into his eyes and saw not a beast, but an intelligent, curious soul. And for Tarzan, looking at Jane, a new, unfamiliar feeling began to stir in his heart. It was a connection that went beyond the language of the apes, beyond the law of the jungle. He brought her back to her camp, a silent protector watching from the shadows. Over the following days, a fragile and beautiful bond began to form. Jane, with her sketchbook and insatiable curiosity, taught him about her world. She showed him pictures of London, of buildings that touched the sky, of people living in a society he couldn't possibly imagine. She taught him to speak his first halting words of English, opening up a universe of new ideas. In return, Tarzan showed her his world. He took her deep into the jungle, swinging through the canopy with a freedom that made her feel alive. He introduced her to his ape family, showing her the gentle heart that beat beneath his wild exterior. He showed her a world of breathtaking beauty, a world of harmony and balance that her own people had forgotten. They were from two different worlds. Yet in the heart of the jungle, they found a common ground. They were falling in love, but their idyllic world was under threat. Clayton the guide was not just an explorer. He was a poacher. His true intention was not to study the gorillas, but to capture them and sell them. He saw Tarzan as the key, the one person who could lead him to their nesting grounds. Clayton played on Tarzan's newfound feelings for Jane, promising that if he showed them the gorillas, Jane would stay with him. Torn, Tarzan faced an impossible choice. His loyalty was to his ape family, to Kerchak, who had warned him about the dangers of man. But his heart belonged to Jane. The desire to keep her with him, to bridge the gap between their two worlds, was overwhelming. In a moment of weakness, he agreed. He led them to the gorillas. It was a trap. The moment the gorillas were revealed, Clayton and his men sprung into action, caging the apes, including Tarzan's beloved mother, Kyla. The betrayal was swift and brutal. In the chaos, Kerchak, trying to protect his family, was mortally wounded by Clayton. As he lay down, the mighty ape looked at Tarzan, and with his final breath, he said, "You came back. You are one of us. Protect them. You are our leader now." In that moment, everything became clear. The conflict within Tarzan vanished, replaced by a singular burning purpose. He was not a man torn between two worlds. He was Tarzan of the apes, and his family was in danger. With the help of Jane and his animal friends, Tantor the elephant and Turk the gorilla, Tarzan orchestrated a daring escape. What followed was a climactic battle for the soul of the jungle. Tarzan, using his unparalleled knowledge of the forest, turned the environment itself into a weapon against Clayton and his men. He swung from vines, using the trees as his fortress, his war cry a promise of retribution. The final confrontation between Tarzan and Clayton took place high in the canopy, a desperate struggle between the wild heart of the jungle and the greedy heart of man. In the end, Clayton, consumed by his own rage, was ensnared by the very vines he tried to cut, his greed leading to his own downfall. The poachers were defeated, the gorillas freed. But a new choice lay before Tarzan. The ship was ready to take Jane and her father back to England. They invited him to come with them, to discover the world of his birthright, to become the lord he was meant to be. He could have a life with Jane, a life in civilization. He stood on the shore, dressed in his father's suit, ready to leave. But he looked back at the jungle, his home. He looked at his family, the apes who had raised him, who now looked to him as their king. He heard the call of the wild in his blood. How could he leave? Seeing the conflict in his eyes, Jane understood. She couldn't ask him to abandon who he was. And in that moment, she made her own choice. As her father boarded the small boat to the ship, he turned to her and said, "Well, go on." But Jane stayed. She looked at Tarzan, her heart full, and said, "I'm staying with you." Love, she realized, wasn't about changing someone or pulling them into your world. It was about joining them in theirs, Professor Porter, seeing the profound love between them, smiled and told the rowboat, "I seem to have misplaced my daughter," before joyfully splashing back to shore himself. And so, our story ends not with a departure, but with a beginning. Jane, the scholar from London, and Tarzan, the king of the jungle, swinging through the trees together, their laughter echoing through the canopy. It is a story that reminds us that home isn't a place, but a feeling, and that true love doesn't force a choice between two worlds, but creates a new one, all its own. What would you choose, the world you were born into, or the one where you truly belong? Let us know in the comments below. Thank you for joining us on this epic adventure. If you enjoyed this story, please give this video a like, and don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next tale. We'll see you in the next story.